We live in a culture that worships effort. We count our steps, our sets, our calories burned, as if the value of our lives could be tallied in metrics of motion. But here's the paradox. Real growth doesn't happen in the gym, it happens in stillness. It happens when we sleep. Every time you lift a weight, you tear tiny fibers in your muscles. Every time you push yourself to exhaustion, you create microscopic damage. The body interprets that damage as a message, a signal to rebuild, to adapt, to grow stronger. But the actual rebuilding, that happens when you rest. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone, one of nature's most powerful anabolic signals. Your cells repair, your tissues regenerate, and even your brain prunes and strengthens neural pathways in patterns that mirror the day's effort. In other words, while you lie still, your body is busy becoming new. We often think of stillness as weakness, but neuroscience tells a different story. The same pleasure-pain balance that governs addiction also governs recovery. Push too hard for pleasure, too much stimulation, too much strain, and the brain tips toward pain, fatigue, and burnout. But when we rest, the scales rebalance, dopamine levels normalize, cortisol falls, and the body reclaims its rhythm. The ancient oscillation between effort and ease, between destruction and repair. I treat patients who can't stop moving, not just in the gym, but in their minds. Scrolling, striving, chasing the next small hit of progress. They fear that stopping means losing ground. But the truth is, without rest, there is no growth, only breakdown. Stillness is not surrender. It is strategy. The paradox of strength is that it emerges from letting go, from honoring the biology of balance, from trusting that sometimes doing nothing is the most productive act of all. So tonight, when you close your eyes, remember this: you are not wasting time, you are rebuilding, and in stillness, you grow stronger. We live in an age obsessed with progress. Every day we are told to do more, train harder, move faster, optimize every hour. Our watches count our steps, our apps track our sleep, our feeds celebrate the relentless pursuit of productivity. We measure our worth in metrics, reps, calories, meetings, deadlines. But beneath this celebration of constant motion lies a deep cultural delusion, the belief that growth is linear, that more effort always yields more reward. Neuroscience tells a different story. The human brain and body are built not for constant acceleration, but for oscillation, cycles of stress and rest, effort and recovery, activation and repair. When we forget this rhythm, when we live only in the on position, we don't grow stronger, we grow fragile. Every act of effort, every workout, every burst of focus, every late night email is a form of controlled stress. When you lift a heavy weight, you create microscopic tears in your muscle fibers. When you stay up late to finish a project, you tax your prefrontal cortex, forcing it to operate on adrenaline and dopamine. In small doses, stress is good. It's the spark that triggers adaptation. But in biology, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The harder we push, the greater the body's need to repair. The same sympathetic system that propels us forward, the fight or flight circuitry that releases cortisol, glucose, and dopamine, must eventually give way to its counterbalance, the parasympathetic system, the network of calm and recovery. When we never allow that counterbalance to activate, when we live in perpetual stimulation, the stress signal becomes chronic. Cortisol remains elevated, sleep becomes shallow, muscles stay inflamed, the mind grows restless. What began as productive energy turns into depletion. This is the paradox of progress. Doing more can actually make us weaker. Dopamine is one of the most misunderstood chemicals in the human brain. We often think of it as a pleasure molecule, the spark of happiness when we achieve something, taste something sweet, or receive praise. But dopamine is not about pleasure itself, it is about pursuit. It is the signal that tells us something good is coming. It is anticipation made chemical. Every goal we chase, lifting a heavier weight, landing a new client, finishing a long run, even checking our phones, is powered by dopamine. It gives direction to desire and energy to effort. Yet for all its brilliance, dopamine is a system built on balance. Every time it rises, it must fall. Every moment of satisfaction carries within it the seeds of dissatisfaction that follow. That is the nature of homeostasis, the body's constant striving for equilibrium. In the brain's reward circuitry, pleasure and pain are two sides of the same scale. They exist in dynamic opposition, always pulling against one another to keep us stable. When we experience pleasure, dopamine spikes. When that moment passes, the balance tilts toward pain, a subtle sense of emptiness or craving. It's not punishment. It's the brain's way of restoring equilibrium. Without that swing back toward baseline, the system would overload. But in modern life, equilibrium is hard to maintain. We live in a dopamine-rich world flooded with stimuli that hijack our reward pathways: caffeine, social media, sugar, competition, likes, notifications, endless novelty. Each stimulus delivers a micro spike of dopamine, a fleeting rush of almost there. The brain adapts by reducing sensitivity, fewer dopamine receptors, weaker signaling, a process known as downregulation. What once felt rewarding now feels ordinary. What used to satisfy no longer suffices. This is how craving begins, not because the reward is greater, but because the brain's ability to feel content has been dulled. We live in a society that celebrates hustle as if it were a virtue. From an early age, we are taught that effort equals worth, that busy schedules signify importance, and that rest is indulgence. Yet the same reward systems that drive substance addiction also fuel our relentless chase for productivity. Each task we complete, each milestone we reach, each win we accumulate provides a small pulse of dopamine. Over time, these micro-rewards condition the brain to seek constant activation. The pattern is strikingly similar to that of addiction: anticipation, action, reward, and craving for the next hit. The mind comes to depend on the stimulus itself, rather than the intrinsic value of the task or achievement. Productivity transforms into a drug. Chronic activation of the brain's reward circuits produces both neurochemical adaptation and behavioral dependence. Dopamine receptors downregulate with repeated stimulation. In practical terms, this means the more we push ourselves to achieve, the less satisfaction we derive from any single accomplishment. What once felt meaningful now feels insufficient, prompting us to chase even harder. We run faster, work longer, and burn brighter, only to feel increasingly hollow. The sympathetic nervous system remains chronically engaged under the pressure of endless productivity. Cortisol remains elevated, sleep suffers, immune function declines, muscle repair slows, emotional regulation falters. Over time, this relentless activation leads to burnout, exhaustion, anxiety, and even depression. In a culture that prizes movement, achievement, and constant action, stillness is often dismissed as passive, unproductive, or indulgent. Yet biology and neuroscience reveal a very different truth. Stillness is not the absence of activity. It is a vital form of action, one that allows the body and mind to recover, repair, and grow stronger. Every day, our bodies endure microtrauma, whether from physical exertion, cognitive strain, or emotional stress. Muscles experience microtears. Neural networks fire relentlessly. Hormones surge in response to perceived threats, opportunities, and stimuli. These processes are natural and necessary, but they are also destructive if left unchecked. The body and brain require intervals of rest to integrate the experiences of the day, repair tissue, and recalibrate the neurochemical systems that govern motivation, reward, and emotion. Without these intervals, effort becomes counterproductive, and even success carries a hidden cost. During periods of quiet reflection, the brain recalibrates its reward system, restoring sensitivity to pleasure and reinforcing healthy patterns of motivation. Emotional memories are processed and integrated, reducing anxiety, irritability, and emotional reactivity. The act of resting enhances our capacity to act with focus, compassion, and effectiveness when we resume activity. Recovery is not a hiatus from performance. It is the foundation upon which sustainable performance is built. Embracing rest, reflection, and stillness requires courage because it goes against cultural messages that equate worth with output. But those who master the art of stillness discover that recovery is not a passive necessity but an active source of power. Strength has always been celebrated as the capacity to endure, to push through, to conquer. In the age we live in, true strength cannot be measured solely in force, endurance, or productivity. We are navigating an environment saturated with stimulation, a world where attention, motivation, and emotion are constantly hijacked by endless inputs. In this context, strength lies in balance, resilience, and the capacity to manage overstimulation. Every day, our brains are bombarded with notifications, messages, and tasks that demand attention. Each ping triggers dopamine release. In small doses, this system serves us well, but in a world of relentless novelty, it becomes overwhelmed, leading to chronic hyperarousal. Strength must encompass the ability to regulate attention, emotion, and physiological arousal. The new strength is not merely physical, it is cognitive and emotional. It is the ability to resist the compulsive pull of constant stimulation, to tolerate discomfort, and to reclaim control over one's attention. It is reflected in the willingness to pause, to rest, to disengage from the stream of input, knowing that these pauses enhance long-term capacity. Recovery is strategic, adaptive, and ultimately empowering. True strength requires embracing vulnerability, respecting our biology, and harmonizing effort with recovery. It demands self-awareness, the capacity to attend to the subtle signals of the body and mind, and the courage to restore equilibrium. Strength is measured not by constant exertion but by resilience, focus, and the ability to thrive amidst complexity. In redefining strength, we discover that the power to act, create, and endure does not come from relentless motion, but from the grace to harmonize effort with recovery, stimulation with stillness, and desire with equilibrium. It requires restraint yet enables action, rest yet produces endurance, vulnerability yet fosters resilience. In a society that glorifies constant activity, the courageous act is to pause, to reflect, and to honor the rhythms of the body and brain. True strength is sustainable, it is enduring, it is profoundly human. In embracing this new definition, we do not merely survive in a noisy, demanding world. We thrive. We grow stronger than we could through motion alone, more focused than we could through constant effort, more resilient than we could through unbalanced achievement. The future of strength is not measured in hours spent striving, but in the mastery of rhythm, the wisdom to rest, and the courage to integrate recovery as the most powerful act of all.